Well, after a 2-week break for the FA Cup third round, we are back today with our Premier League previews, and this is a big one at the bottom of the table for both Burnley and Luton Town. We're going to look ahead to that game in detail by having a look back at both's last Premier League game. And of course, we'll also have a look ahead to the whole fixture list in the Premier League, which is spread over 2 weekends because of the winter break to make sure everyone gets 10 days off. So as a result of that, you'll have all of the 5 fixtures for this weekend and all of the 5 for next in this preview. Get involved in the comments with your predictions for matchday 21. And of course, we'll come back in a couple of weeks' time again to see who was right and who did better than me. If you beat or match my score, you will get a shout out in that recap. But for now, we are going to step back and look ahead to the first game of the weekend between Burnley and Luton Town. Firstly, a big thanks to Luton for the 0-0 draw and to VAR for not giving a Stonewall penalty, because that now means I can't go to Burnley. If it had been on Monday night, I had my ticket ready to go, but Friday, just not possible due to work. So unfortunately, I'm still not going to be able to tick off the Burnley ground after a few near misses in recent seasons. But let's look ahead to the match in a bit more detail by looking back at the last Premier League fixture for both of these, because Luton Town were valiant in defeat against Chelsea, arguably one of the better performances going forward of the season. A couple of individual errors at the back did cost them. Whereas for Burnley, again, it was a gritty away performance, a lot of hard work to get back into the game, but unfortunately, a very soft late penalty cost the 10 men the chance at a point. So narrow defeats for both by 3-2, and hallmarks of defensive errors from both. However, let's start with Luton-Chelsea, the game I was at, because let's be honest, Luton were a match for Chelsea throughout this game, and it was one of those that was really frustrating to watch because Luton found themselves a couple of goals down without really being out of the game and giving up many chances to Chelsea. Cole Palmer obviously produced some magic for the third, but the first was just a poor defensive error clearing from defence from Issa Kabore, who'd been brilliant for us this season and won't be available this week due to AFCON. And the second allowed a bit too much time for Noni Madueke off the right, who I have to say did look the biggest threat for Chelsea aside from Cole Palmer. So, 2 good attacking players having an impact for Chelsea. However, didn't Luton give them a scare late on? At 20 minutes to go, Chelsea thought it was all done at 3-0. The fans actually woke up in the away end as well. However, Luton came back with a vengeance. A goal ruled out for offside, followed by Ross Barkley's header. What a threat he's starting to be from set pieces, by the way. And Elijah Adebayo, again, starting to look all the bit a Premier League striker now. Really leading the line well. Not always got the natural finishing instincts, but my God, he's a hard-working player. And he's starting to become a bit of a star for this team. Luton, in the end, as Rob Edwards alluded to, had more shots in the game, had more possession, which sort of dispels a few of the myths about this Luton team. We're starting to grow a bit more confident on the ball. We're starting to be more aggressive, particularly at home. We've seen now against the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal, City and Chelsea, the Luton are prepared to get on the ball and be aggressive going forward. Lots of quality out wide, and of course showed another change of shape in this game with Talif Chong coming on and looking a superstar, albeit didn't have the best game against Bolton last week, but not many did. And if we boil down to it, despite all the defensive mistakes, we were a wonder save away from nicking a point. Pekovic made a brilliant save from Carlton Morris to tip one onto the bar. And in the end, that was a match-saving one that I think has been nominated for Save of the Month, and rightly so. So overall, a lot of positives from Luton again, but another competitive yet valiant defeat at home, and you don't get any points for that. What we have got, though, is one of the sides who have beaten Luton this year in Burnley, who, if you remember back to the away game, which was rescheduled in early October on a Tuesday night, Luton equalised to make it 1-1 through Adebayo, who at that point was still an impact sub. And then Brun Larson from the kickoff scored an absolute wonder goal to nick Burnley all 3 points. But despite that, I think you would say that Luton have been the more competitive of the two this year and probably have adapted a bit more quickly. We've talked a lot, particularly in live streams with a few of the Burnley fans, about some of the changes made in the summer, the fact that there had been a few more than had been expected for a side that had romped the Championship. But one of the biggest things has been Burnley taking time to adapt to the style and company, making a few sacrifices and compromises in his all playing out from the back football. And we have seen that in recent weeks from Burnley at times, which has meant that they've been more competitive, they've stayed in games more, and particularly away from home, picked up a couple of very good results. Again against Villa, more competitive on the road. I think the best news probably for Burnley is Lyle Foster being back, was a threat against Villa, scored again, and there's no doubt He's got the hallmarks and the finishing instincts of a Premier League striker. Whether they can keep him on the pitch, I don't know, but there are more important things, quite frankly. But when he is there, he looks a real threat and a real handful at times too. For Burnley, though, defensively, it's the Achilles heel. They've got the joint worst defensive record at home this season, only matched by Sheffield United. They have the worst home record in the Premier League by a long way. 3 points from their 10 games. The only win coming against Sheffield United, the worst away team in the division. And they've only scored 10 goals at home, with half of those coming in that win against United. So there's two ways of looking at this for them. It will be either a very poor home record, which may lean you towards an away win, or to say, well, Burnley's only other win was a convincing one against the other promoted side, albeit a side that's not done as well this year. Will they be able to do it against Luton as well? I'm really not sure what to expect from this game. I think there's a couple of question marks in how Rob Edwards will set up, particularly with Kabore away. Will he move to Doughty on the right, or will he stick with Ogbene, who played in the cup tie? Will he try and get him further forward to be a more counter-attacking threat away from home in the Premier League? Or will he stick with a tried and trusted experience of Townsend, who was brilliant against Sheffield United and against Newcastle too, and did have a threat at times against Chelsea? So there's a few question marks to be answered there. You would definitely say, based on the home and away records, that Luton have got a good chance. However, I'm going to stick my neck on the line for this game. I go back to the Championship games, and even the one earlier this season. The Championship games, we were barely separable. We drew 1-1 at Turf Moor right at the start of the season. Was a game where both sides had their spells, and Vincent Kompany said as much afterwards. In the home game later in the season, Luton lost 1-0, but it was a complete stalemate until a late red card for Lockyer and a penalty to convert to make it 1-0. So I'm not sure there's much between these sides. We saw it was a wonder goal that separated the two back in October. Otherwise, again, both teams had spells. Burnley looked good in patches. Luton were able to put pressure on with balls into the box. And it is Burnley's Achilles heel, which is a great sign for Luton, because from set pieces, from wide areas, Luton have got a massive threat and hopefully can take advantage again, which is why I questioned whether maybe both Morris and Adebayo would start, although I think Sunday's game against Bolton may have put Rob Edwards off that. So for me, after all of that, I'm going to go bold here, because Burnley have not drawn a home game all season. Luton have only drawn one away from home, but I'm going to go for it anyway. I'm going to go for what was the Championship's favourite scoreline of a 1-1 draw. Both sides could really do with a win. I'm not sure a draw would help either, albeit, depending on other results, Luton could be level on points with Everton at the end of that weekend. But I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. If either team nicks it, I think most fans of both clubs would be in agreement that it's probably only going to be by the odd goal. It'll be interesting to see how this game pans out, because there's a lot of pressure on both now. Obviously, Friday night means a day less off, but a big break afterwards. Both teams can throw the kitchen sink, and late on, maybe we'll see a more aggressive game with more goals. But for me, I'm going for 1 goal apiece. I just think, like most games between these two sides the last year and a half, it's going to be very tight and very cagey, but I may well be proven wrong. So that is the Luton Burnley game out of the way, but with that done, let's move on to the rest of the weekend's action, because, well, I say the weekend, the next 2 weekends' action. But before we do so, we need to have a look back to matchday 20, which took place over the final weekend of December and the first couple of days of 2024. So I was actually a bit disappointed with my score, because overall I picked up 8 points. I got a perfect score predicting a Nottingham Forest win against United by 2-1, as a couple of you guys did in the comments too. 5 other correct outcomes for Chelsea, Villa, Crystal Palace, Manchester City and Liverpool made it 8 points overall for me. I was unlucky with the Liverpool score as well. But a few surprises near the end of the match day pulled the scores down for all of us. So my 8 points was joint second best in this match day. Sam is the commenter who gets the big shout out, because you picked up 9 points and won the match day overall. But I was level in second with 8 points alongside 3 of the regulars, Steve, Mitchell and W&G. So well done to all of you. Keep playing along in the comments, and if you beat or match the score this time, you will get a shout out in the next recap too. But let's move on to match day 21. We obviously start with the Friday night game between Burnley and Luton, and do you know what? The more I'm looking at 1-1, I'm feeling it's not going to be right. I'm really tempted to change it to 2-2. I don't think we've ever done it when we've got this late in a video. Let's do it. We're going to change it to 2-2. I'm going to go Burnley 2, Luton 2. The frantic ending, 2 weeks off after. I think we're going to see teams go for it. So Burnley 2, Luton 2. Let's add an extra goal in for each of them there. For the rest of the first weekend, I'm going to go for Chelsea to nick the game against Fulham by 1-0. I think that's going to be really tight. it could go either way. We've seen Chelsea slip up at home against teams that set up more cautiously, but I'm going to go for them to nick this one. Newcastle v Manchester City, I think is going to be a great game. Newcastle definitely benefiting from having a week off each of the last two, and they were brilliant against Sunderland, as bad as Mick Beale's side were. So 2 goals apiece there. As City, still not looking wholly convincing, though delighted to have De Bruyne back in that cup win against Huddersfield. Everton v Villa, another tough one to call. Villa not been great on the road. Everton hitting poor form again, but I think they're another side that will benefit from more time off. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in that one. For United v Spurs, I just can't see anything other than an away win. Wigan were able to penetrate Manchester United's midfield at times, and for everyone saying they'd solved all their problems against Aston Villa, they were very much proven wrong against Forest. Spurs, quick on the counter, electric through the middle. I just don't see how they don't win it, and they should have Timo Werner for that game, which would suit them really down to the ground. Great for their style. I'm going for Spurs to carve them open by 3-1. Moving on to the second half of this match day, which will be next weekend. I've gone for Arsenal to pip Crystal Palace by 2-1. Really worrying spell for Arsenal in front of goal. Wasted countless chances against Liverpool. Got into good positions, but didn't really create anything special against West Ham. And against Fulham were just generally poor. Are they going to get a striker in by then? Will he at least start Nketiah with the others misfiring? We'll wait and see. But I think they'll nick it 2-1 against Palace. Brentford, Nottingham Forest. Again, I can't separate. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Of course, Brentford have got a cup replay that midweek. If it's Tuesday, Tony can't play. If it's Wednesday, he can. But for this game, he's going to be well and truly back. And I'm going to bank on him to score that goal for Brentford to get them a draw. For Sheffield United at home to West Ham, I can't see this being a thriller. West Ham are very solid defensively when they want to be, but without Kudus, without Paqueta in the last game, they look really toothless against Brighton. They've got the threat in Jared Bowen, and I think they might nick one, maybe from a set piece, if anything. But I don't see it being a great game. But 3 points and a good result. West Ham are flying. That's all you can ask for. Again, overachieving. Bournemouth against Liverpool. Again, Liverpool not looking great in the first half of matches. Arsenal on another day could have been 4 or 5 up, but they've got a constant attacking threat, even without Mo Salah. And while with him, I might have given them an extra goal. I think they'll edge out Bournemouth by 2-1, but will be an interesting clash of styles with Bournemouth playing out, keeping the ball, and Liverpool being lightning quick on the counter. I think it's going to be a really fun game. And then the final one of the match day, Brighton v Wolves. I just don't see a scenario it's not 1-1. Wolves will defend in numbers against Brighton style, and on the counter they may have a threat, but again, they are missing 1 or 2 stars, so could go either way this one. Wolves without some of their key goal scorers due to international call-ups, but I'm going to go for them to nick a draw. 1-1 to finish the match day. So those are my score predictions for match day 21. Do you agree or disagree with them? Let me know in the comments below and give me your predictions for all 10 games over the next 2 weekends. If you beat or match my score, you'll get a shout out in the next recap, which will be in about 2.5 weeks' time, as we look ahead after the FA Cup weekend to Luton versus Brighton. For now though, if you did enjoy this one, please do put a thumbs up on the video. If you haven't seen the channel over the last week or so, where on earth have you been? We've had 3 big Championship Manager specials. Thank you for the insane support with them. We got our AFCON preview. That starts on Saturday as well. I think All in Luton will be supporting Issa Kabore and Burkina Faso. There's plenty of Premier League involvement in that though, so check out our AFCON preview with myself and Charlie. There's also Championship predictions returning tomorrow as we look ahead to matchday 27 there. So come and get involved in the comments for that one too. But for now, to stay up to date with everything, subscribe and turn that notification bell on. And we'll see you back here tomorrow afternoon as the Championship resumes following the FA Cup break.